Today's color code is SW7022. Let's get cracking. I'm James from thepaintpeople.com and welcome back to Color Code, cracking the code on color selection. Why color code? Well, it's quite simple really. Every color in painting and decorating has at least one associated color code. In today's episode on SW7022, it's all about the Sherwin Williams color, Alpaca. This is one that's been growing in popularity as of late, especially in the neutral color palette. It's a color that can really elevate and transform a space, largely due to its surprisingly complex mix of undertones and its slightly darker look for a midtone. Its LRV is 57, which of course is the light reflectance value, or the percentage of light that the color reflects once it's been applied to a surface. For comparison's sake, your brightest white paints might have an LRV in the high 80s or even low 90s, while a deep dark black would be somewhere around 2 or 3. Because Alpaca is roughly in the middle of the spectrum, that will tend to give it some flexibility. It's in that gray-beige category of neutrals, and I would definitely say it leans more warm rather than cool due to its abundance of that yellowy beige warmth, which is accompanied by a healthy dose of a kind of rusty red. It's this red that really changes the dynamic of the color because it's present enough that I wouldn't simply classify it as just another grayish. It has enough of that earthy quality to identify it as more of a warm taupe, which will naturally have more of an impact on the walls. It's also that added red that will sometimes cause the color to have a subtle purple shift with cooler surrounding lighting, but I think that just adds to its character. Where should you use it? If your home has a decent amount of lighting, believe it or not, this mid-tone color can be given the prestigious main color candidacy, and it's largely because of its ability to play with warmer colors as well as grays. And it's also going to be a little more exciting when compared to a much lighter counterpart color, which can be deemed as more of a clean slate or empty canvas type of feel. The major asterisk I'm going to put here is solely based around its LRV, which doesn't make it very dark, but in dark areas, it'll look a whole lot darker. I find this to look very elegant in living areas that also incorporate dark grays and taupes, and some little purple accents here and there to soften the purple in Alpaca. That's a handy little trick I use quite often. If there's a color cast or a pesky undertone in my wall color that's peeping through and I'm not too fond of it, or at least I want to soften it, then I would just use that same tone in my accent pieces within the room to draw the viewer's attention away instead. If you're not crazy about the purple coming through in your wall, use some purple curtains and it'll take care of it right away. What's a good trim color for it? Well, you could opt for something like pure white if you want a clean yet inviting aesthetic, but this is a case where I might encourage you to change things up a little bit. Consider veering away from the bright whites and maybe go for something that's clearly an off-white, like alabaster. That's a color that's largely thought of as a light neutral wall color, but with something as deep as Alpaca, the contrast will be significant between the two, which will create a really nice, aesthetically pleasing look. Alabaster and Alpaca. A pair of owls. You could even use Alpaca on your trim and then alabaster on the walls in the areas that are needing some brightening up. Just as a reminder, however, you don't want to use the same paint on your trim and your walls. Normally, your wall paint will tend to have a flatter finish like an eggshell or matte, and your trim would have more of a shine like a pearl, satin, or semi-gloss. Just thought I should mention that. What are some awesome color pairings? Let's start with a slate gray that has that same slight touch of taupe and purple mixed in, which really incorporates nicely with Alpaca. And it's simply called slate violet. This is a beautiful deep color that will essentially neutralize the purple hue in Alpaca, because this one just has more of it. While it can be used as a dark accent color, its LRV is only about 29, so you could still get away with using it throughout a room. I would just maybe recommend it in areas that have a lot of windows, wall fixtures, essentially a limited amount of visible wall space. For a much lighter color, why not go with something like simple white? This one has some similarities to the previously mentioned alabaster, but simple white is going to be a little bit darker, and it also is slightly more taupe leaning rather than a creamy yellow. Simple white could also double as an alternative trim color choice too, and it could bridge the gap between itself and Alpaca a little bit more tightly, meaning the difference between the two is more subtle than Alpaca and alabaster, for example. Whatever you decide to do when picking a light coordinating color, just be aware that their differences will be very slight, and the look could end up lacking specificity. If subtlety is your thing, then great. But if you're expecting a clear difference, it won't be a very large one. Can you compare it to other colors? But of course. To start, let's go with a similar color that shows a little bit less purple and in turn has a bit of a green cast, and that's Vessel. With these warm neutral colors, there's likely to be a slight green or purple cast, so Alpaca has the purple and Vessel in turn has the green, which will react differently with your flooring and furniture. Although it's not a spot-on match, Benjamin Moore's London Fog has a very similar LRV and will pretty much have the same overall appearance in practical usage. It's just a tad more beige brown leaning than Alpaca, but like I said, it's pretty darn close. Question time. No matter which company, which color do you want us to take a look at next? Let us know in the comment section below. Here's a video we did on top 10 neutrals that we found from Glidden Paint. There's some pretty nice ones in there, and just like I did in this video, I also found their Benjamin Moore counterparts. Because why not? Please subscribe, hit that like button, and that bell icon so you don't miss out on the color content you crave. See you on the next one.